Hi guys. As usual, it's been a while since I made a video, and I figured I'd do something a little bit different this time. This previous week, I finished all the V4s in the gym, the climbing gym, where I climb all the time, and so I figured I would try to do a challenge for myself where I would try to repeat all of the V4s in the gym that I'd already done at least once in one session, which I've never tried to do before. So this video is basically an edit of all of those attempts, except for one, which was a real shame, and this is just editing all of those attempts together in one long video, and I'm going to do a voiceover over the top of it just to give some insights and thoughts into how I was feeling and what I was thinking at the time as I was climbing.
Starting off with this pink one. This one's not super crazy. I've probably been warming up for about 20 or 30 minutes at this point. I felt pretty good, but this was still a little bit of a warm-up. Nothing too crazy, just a little bit of slopey stuff on a slight overhang. This was at about 645 or so. This one's number 2 on the double overhanging wall. This one's pretty fun. The holds are all pretty good, but the moves are a little tricky. And that last hold is not quite as good as you want it to be, so you really got to hit it carefully. This one took me a while to figure out. Starting on that slopey hold, it took me so many attempts to figure out that little left arm bar thing in the corner. Without it, I just couldn't even get off the ground. I couldn't put weight on that hold without the arm bar. But once I got it, it worked out pretty well. Still fumbling a little bit to get up it, though. That last little jump is pretty satisfying. This dyno is pretty fun. Typically I haven't been able to get that first try of the day, so all of these attempts so far have been first attempts. I'm going to show every attempt that I do in this video, so every attempt except for one. This one's kind of long. The first section of it's based on the Crux simulator from Free Solo, but it's kind of hard to recreate it without actually having climbed the thing or been up there to do the moves, but it was interesting. Definitely a lot easier than the actual Crux. I'd only done this one once before, so I'm kind of refiguring out my path up here. This one's also real tenuous. It's on a slab, but these first few holds are really bad slopey things, so you have to be really precise with how you position your body and your feet moving around this thing. And getting this left foot up is kind of tough too, at least for me. But the last two holds are pretty good. This one was actually one of the toughest ones for me to figure out how to do. The beta on it had to be really, really precise, and my finger placements had to be super specific, because these holds are like little clouds or little balls of little bunches of grapes almost, and you have to get your fingers on them in exactly the right ways, and figuring out what positions to hold them in and what body positions I had to be in to get up and actually use the holds was tough. And that last move is pretty committing, but you're going to a super good hold, so as long as you hit it, it's no problem. But it felt pretty easy that time. This slab is pretty fun. A little bit tricky getting between the volumes, and there's actually a beta that I wish I had filmed where you go under that lower triangle volume that my feet are on, instead of going in between the two like I'm doing here. I wish I had gotten that on video, but maybe I'll show that later. This last move is the toughest part for me because it's at really, really full stretch the way I'm doing it. I don't really have any leeway with my feet on this. I have to be in just one very specific spot on that volume to be able to let the foot go. Still feeling pretty good at this stage. This one's physically one of the toughest, I think, at least from my perspective. Getting this heel hook and locking that right hand off right there is a pretty intense move. And then you just gotta keep it together for the rest of these holds. The finish is a decent pinch, but you definitely have to keep the tension on that toe, otherwise you are going to swing off. Felt really good about that one. Now it's time to start losing some momentum. This one I had just done a few days before, and that's my first fall of the day. But the problem is I did it pretty quickly, but also in so doing I didn't really work the moves a bunch and memorize what it was, so the beta on it, I just had no memory of how I did it, which was really annoying. And the crack is too thin to do any real jams in, plus those volumes are super slick. They have no texture on them, they're just paint. I still don't remember how to do this one. I need to go back to the gym and spend a bit of a session figuring this one out again so that I can actually repeat it consistently. Very frustrating. Like I said, this is the first boulder that I had fallen on so far today, so it kind of took me out of the swing of things a little bit. I was a little bit worried about this one and the black one on the other side with the grape holds. The black one I did pretty easily, this one not so much. Almost, and couldn't move out of that position. Speaking of broken momentum, I actually did this problem and forgot to hit record, and so this is me going back to it, actually recording it, and couldn't stick the move again. So, moving on to something else, I'll come back to that one. This is one that I flashed. I think when I flashed it, I probably did it a little bit cleaner than this. Definitely fumbling with my feet a little bit on this attempt. But matching the finish felt more secure this time for some reason. This is another one that I flashed, which meant that I didn't remember the beta very well. So, didn't remember how exactly I wanted to do this. There's a crimp up high that I remember I wanted to try to avoid, but it doesn't really work to, at least for me, to do it without that crimp. Trying to match this sloper rather than going left hand to the crimp. And as soon as I take my hand off, I just lose control. Let's try that one again. A little fumble with the feet again on that. But get into position on the sloper, grab that crimp, try not to crank on it too hard, and just pop up to the finish. Much better. This is another pretty powerful one, and another one that has a nice small left hand crimp there. The rest of the problem isn't particularly difficult, it's mostly just in those first two moves. Sticking that left hand crimp and then jumping up to that almost oval shaped hold. The rest of the holds are pretty good and the moves aren't too bad. This one's a little bit strange, again with a pretty small left hand crimp. I don't know what's with this set, but my left hand felt pretty well strained after I left. And that had consequences that I was not fond of toward the end of the session. No injuries or anything, just not performing as well as I wanted to. Gotta balance and just touch it. This one took me a few attempts too. I'm not usually particularly good at this sort of running dyno style. It's definitely not something that comes super naturally to me, but it's one that as long as you do it once, usually you can repeat it pretty well. You just have to learn the movement. And so I was able to do this one pretty quickly, even without a lot of rest. Just hop, get it. I don't know why they didn't just finish on the hold that my right hand is on. For some reason, the finish was on both of those holds. This one, I'm not really a huge fan of, but from what I hear, it was just made with literally 7 holds that happened to be available. Like, they were the only holds that this setter had at his disposal, so I guess I can't fault him too much for not creating some brilliant problem, considering that he pretty much just had what was left at the bottom of the bin, I guess. Strange moves, but they're tricky, so it's good to figure out how to do them. Finally, a strenuous move for the right hand, matching this finish hold, which is just this super shallow little pocket thing. This one's super fun. Getting that running jump start took me quite a few attempts. I had to back up my start significantly. The rest of the problem isn't very hard. But I got that one first try of the day and was very pleased that I knocked that out quickly. Now we're back again to the orange one that I didn't finish before, or rather that I did finish but didn't get on camera before. Shamefully enough, this is one that I actually set myself before, just after the gym closed for quarantine, so I came in and set a problem and did a little bit of forerunning of the others, and this is one that I set myself, and now I can't repeat it again, which was pretty embarrassing. Luckily, I was the only one in the gym at this point. I probably had been for almost an hour at this stage. Everyone else had gone home. But like I said about the left hand before, I just I'm running out of power in it. And even though the right hand is the one that's catching that hold, I just can't apply enough. I can't use the left hand enough to support it in that move. It's supposed to be a pseudo-simulation of lucid dreaming, in a way, but obviously much, much easier. So I gave up on that one for the night and went back for another attempt on this one, just to see if I could eke anything out of it. And the answer is no. At this stage, it's been about 2 hours now that this session's been going. It's about 8:45 now. I started about 6:45, and so I am just exhausted and hungry and ready to go home.
Well, that was a pretty good experiment and a fun challenge, even if it was pretty frustrating at times. I appreciate you watching, and in the meantime, go out there and have a great day.